How can a simple request for space turn into a public legal showdown? What started as me seeking time to heal ended with a stranger handing me divorce papers in front of my own family. Can I still blame my husband for what happened, or did I write the ending myself? The cramped living room of our downtown apartment felt smaller than usual as I paced between the worn couch and the coffee table cluttered with Mia's coloring books. Ethan sat rigid in his favorite armchair, the blue one we'd bought when we first moved in together 8 years ago, back when everything felt possible. "I need space, Ethan," I said, finally stopping to face him. "I need time to heal." His dark eyes searched my face, confusion creasing his brow. "Heal from what, Lysandra? We had one fight about the budget. One fight." I felt that familiar surge of frustration. He never understood. "It's not about one fight. It's about everything. The way you shut down when I try to talk to you. The way you come home from school and just disappear into your lesson plans. I'm a teacher. I have to prepare. See, there you go again." I threw my hands up. "Everything is about your job, your responsibilities. What about me? What about what I need?" Ethan leaned forward, his teacher voice creeping in, that measured, patient tone he used with difficult students. "What do you need, Lys? Tell me specifically what you need, and I'll try to give it to you." The reasonableness in his voice made me want to scream. "I need you to stop being so controlling. I need you to understand that I'm suffocating in this relationship." "Controlling?" His voice cracked slightly. "How am I controlling? You question everything I do, where I'm going, who I'm with, what I'm spending money on. I feel like I'm married to my father." That hit him. I could see it in the way his shoulders sagged. Good. Maybe now he'd understand. I thought we were a team. I thought couples discuss things. There's a difference between discussing and interrogating. I grabbed my purse from the kitchen counter. "I'm going to stay at Greta's this weekend. I need time to think." "Lysandra, wait." He stood up, and for a moment I thought he might fight for me. Instead, he just looked tired. "What about Mia? She's expecting us to take her to the zoo tomorrow. You can take her. Some father-daughter time might be good for both of you." As I headed for the door, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't texted in months, David Chen. We'd reconnected on social media recently, just innocent likes and comments on old college photos. But when I'd mentioned feeling trapped in my marriage during a particularly vulnerable moment, he'd been so understanding, so different from Ethan's constant need to fix everything. "Hey," I typed as I walked down the hallway. "That coffee you mentioned, are you free this weekend?" The response came before I even reached the elevator. "Absolutely. I know just the place." The Riverside Cafe buzzed with Saturday morning energy. Young professionals catching up over lattes, families with strollers navigating between tables, the comfortable chaos of people living their lives. I spotted David immediately. He'd claimed a corner table with a view of the street, and he looked exactly like his recent photos suggested. Confident, well-dressed, successful. "Lysandra," he stood to hug me, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. "You look amazing." "Thank you." I slid into the chair across from him, suddenly self-conscious about my simple jeans and sweater. "Thanks for meeting me on such short notice." "Are you kidding? I've been hoping we'd reconnect ever since you liked that throwback post from our media studies class." His smile was warm, interested. "So tell me everything. How's married life treating you?" The question I'd been dreading and anticipating. "It's complicated." "Isn't it always?" He signaled the waitress. "2 cappuccinos?" I nodded, grateful for the moment to collect my thoughts. Ethan's a good man, a good father, but sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm just Mia's mom or Ethan's wife instead of being Lysandra. I get that completely. After my divorce, I realized how much of myself I'd given up trying to be what Sarah wanted me to be. Right, he was divorced, available. Not that it mattered. I was just here for perspective, for someone who might understand what I was going through. My phone buzzed. Ethan. I glanced at the screen and saw, Mia's asking where you are. Should I tell her you're with a friend? I silenced the phone without responding. Everything okay? David asked. Just my husband checking up on me. See what I mean about the controlling thing? David's eyebrows rose. He tracks your location? Not exactly, but he always wants to know where I am, who I'm with. It's exhausting. We talked for 2 hours. David told me about his work in marketing, his travels, his philosophy about living authentically. He listened, really listened, when I talked about feeling stuck, about wondering if I'd married too young, about whether this was all there was to life. You know, he said as we prepared to leave, there's this great little wine bar downtown. Very quiet, very discreet. If you ever want to continue this conversation. I should have said no. Should have thanked him for the coffee and gone home to work things out with my husband. Instead, I heard myself saying, that sounds nice. That evening, I sat in Greta's guest room, staring at my phone. 3 missed calls from Ethan, 2 text messages asking if I was okay. My sister knocked on the door. How was your day? Greta asked, settling on the edge of the bed. Good. Productive. I had coffee with an old friend from college. Anyone I know? David Chen. We were in media studies together. He understands what I'm going through. Greta's expression grew cautious. Liz, you know I support you taking time to figure things out, but be careful about confiding in other men when you're vulnerable. It's not like that. We're just friends. But even as I said it, I was remembering the way David's eyes had lingered on mine, the way he'd touched my hand when he said goodbye, the flutter of excitement I'd felt when he suggested the wine bar. My phone buzzed with a new message, but it wasn't from Ethan. Today was exactly what I needed. Thank you for trusting me with your thoughts. You deserve so much more than you're getting. Sweet dreams. Beautiful. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Thank you for listening. It means more than you know. Monday morning at the office felt different. As an administrative assistant at Morrison & Associates, I usually blended into the background, but today, my co-workers seemed to notice me more. You look radiant today, Lysandra, said Jennifer from accounting. New skincare routine. I smiled, touching my cheek self-consciously. Just been getting better sleep. Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. You're glowing. The compliment followed me through the day. During lunch, I found myself checking my reflection in the bathroom mirror, seeing what Jennifer saw. Maybe it was the excitement of feeling appreciated again, of having someone see me as more than just a wife and mother. David had texted that morning. Can't stop thinking about our conversation. Lunch today. I declined, too risky with my co-workers around, but the attention felt like sunlight after months of living in shadows. Around 3 o'clock, my phone rang. Ethan. Hey, I answered, keeping my voice neutral. Hi, how's work? Fine, busy. Liz, can we talk tonight? Really talk? Mia keeps asking when you're coming home and I miss you. The vulnerability in his voice should have melted my resolve. Instead, it felt like pressure. I'm not ready yet, Ethan. I told you I need space. It's been 3 days. I'm trying to understand what I did wrong, but you won't tell me. It's not about what you did wrong. It's about what you didn't do right. Silence stretched between us. Finally, he said, I saw Tom Henderson at the grocery store. He mentioned seeing you at the Riverside Cafe on Saturday, with a man he didn't recognize. My stomach clenched. Tom taught at the same school as Ethan. So now you're having people spy on me. I'm not having anyone spy on you. Tom was just making conversation. Who are you with, Lise? A friend from college. We had coffee. Is that a crime? No, but what? I can't have friends. I can't leave the house without filing a report. That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. This is exactly why I need space, Ethan. You're paranoid and controlling, and I can't breathe. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline. Around me, the office hummed with normal Monday afternoon energy, but I felt exposed, like everyone could see through me. That evening at Greta's, I helped Mia with her homework while my sister made dinner. My daughter's small face was serious as she worked on math problems. "Mummy, why don't you live with us anymore?" The question hit like a punch. "I'm just staying with Aunt Greta for a few days, baby. Sometimes grown-ups need time to think." "Are you and Daddy getting divorced?" "Why would you ask that?" "Because Tommy's parents got divorced, and first his mum moved out for thinking time." I knelt beside her chair, smoothing her dark hair. "Daddy and I are just working through some things. Don't worry about grown-up stuff, okay?" But her question haunted me through dinner. Greta waited until Mia was watching TV to bring it up. "She's scared, Lise. Kids pick up on everything." "I know, but I can't stay in a marriage just for Mia's sake." "Is that what you're doing? Or are you running towards something else?" The question hung in the air. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. "David, wine bar tomorrow? I have something I want to tell you." I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. This was the moment. Say no, go home, work on my marriage. Or say yes and see where this path led. "Yes," I typed. "What time?" 7. I'll send you the address." I looked up to find Greta watching me, concern written across her face. "Who is that?" "Just work stuff," I lied, slipping the phone into my pocket. "I might have to work late tomorrow." The wine bar was exactly as David had described. Dim lighting, intimate booths, the kind of place where conversation stayed private. I arrived first, choosing a corner table where I could see the door, my heart racing with anticipation and guilt. David appeared at 7 sharp, looking devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He slid into the booth beside me instead of across from me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "You came," he said, signaling the waitress. "I almost didn't." "But you did. That tells me everything I need to know." We ordered wine, something expensive that David selected, and fell into the same easy conversation as Saturday. But tonight felt different, charged. When he leaned closer to make a point, his hand found mine on the table. "Lysandra, I need to be honest with you about something." My pulse quickened. "What?" "I didn't just happen to see your social media posts. I've been thinking about you for years, wondering what would have happened if we'd given us a chance back in college. David, I know you're married. I know it's complicated. But sitting here with you, seeing how unhappy you are, life's too short to settle for less than you deserve." The wine made everything feel softer, more possible. When he suggested we continue the conversation somewhere more private, I found myself nodding. The hotel room was elegant, understated. We talked for another hour, the conversation growing more intimate, more honest. When he kissed me, I didn't pull away. When he suggested we were both adults who deserved happiness, it felt like permission. Afterward, lying in the unfamiliar bed, reality crept in. I checked my phone, 4 missed calls from Ethan, 3 from Greta. "I have to go," I whispered. David pulled me closer. "Stay. Just tonight." "I can't. My daughter. One night, Lysandra. When will we have another chance like this?" I stayed. The next morning, sneaking back into Greta's house, I felt like a teenager breaking curfew. My sister was waiting in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, her expression unreadable. "Long night at work?" she asked. "We had a crisis with the Morrison account. I had to stay late." "Uh-huh." Greta studied my face. "Liz, whatever you're doing, be careful. You have a lot to lose." "I'm just trying to figure out what I want." "Are you? Or have you already decided?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from David. "Last night was unforgettable. I can't stop thinking about you." I quickly deleted it, but not before Greta caught the guilty expression on my face. That afternoon, Ethan's mother called. "Lysandra, we need to talk. Can you come by for dinner Sunday? The whole family will be there." Ruth Vane had never liked me. had never thought I was good enough for her precious son, but something in her tone suggested this wasn't a request. I don't know if that's a good idea, Ruth. Ethan and I are working through some things. Exactly why we need to talk. Sunday at 6. Don't make me call your mother. She hung up before I could protest. Sunday dinner at the Vane family home was a minefield waiting to explode. Ruth had invited both families. My mother Della, Greta, even Mia. The dining room felt crowded, tense, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Ethan looked haggard, like he hadn't been sleeping. He barely met my eyes when I arrived, focusing instead on cutting Mia's chicken and asking her about school. "So, Lysandra," Ruth said halfway through the meal, her voice deceptively casual. "How's work been? Ethan mentioned you've been putting in a lot of overtime lately." "It's busy season," I replied, taking a large gulp of wine. Must be very demanding work. Administrative assistants usually keep regular hours." My mother jumped in. "Lysandra's always been dedicated to her job. Unlike some people, she doesn't get summers off." The dig at Ethan's teaching career hung in the air. Ruth's eyes flashed. "Speaking of dedication," Ruth continued, reaching into her purse, "I found something interesting when I was helping Ethan clean out your shared car." She placed a hotel receipt on the table. The Grandview Hotel. Tuesday night. The night I'd told everyone I was working late. The silence was deafening. Mia looked confused, sensing the tension but not understanding it. Greta stared at her plate. My mother's face flushed red. That's from a work event," I stammered. "A work event that required an overnight stay at a hotel 15 minutes from your office." Ruth's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "Ruth, that's enough," my mother snapped. "You have no right to go through Lysandra's things. I have every right to protect my son from a woman who's clearly having an affair." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Mia's fork clattered to her plate. "What's an affair?" she asked in a small voice. "Nothing, baby," I said quickly. "Grandma Ruth is just upset." "I'm upset because my son is being humiliated while his wife runs around town with other men." Ruth shot back. "That's enough." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this. Ethan, are you going to let your mother attack me like this?" Ethan finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't anger. It was disappointment. Deep, bone-weary disappointment. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Is what true?" "The hotel. Were you with someone else?" The room held its breath. I could lie, could stick to my story about work, but looking at my daughter's confused face, at Greta's pained expression, at my husband's broken eyes, the truth felt inevitable. I need to tell you something. I'm pregnant." If the hotel receipt had been a bomb, this was a nuclear explosion. My mother gasped. Ruth's face went white. Ethan just stared at me. "Pregnant?" Greta whispered. "How far along?" Ethan's voice was barely audible. "About 6 weeks." I watched him do the math, watched him realize what 6 weeks meant. We hadn't been intimate in over 2 months. "Whose is it?" Ruth demanded. I don't know." The lie tasted bitter. I knew exactly whose it was. Ethan stood up slowly, his movements careful and controlled. "Mia, go upstairs and play in Grandma's room for a while." "But Daddy..." "Now, sweetheart." After Mia left, he turned back to me. 6 weeks. "Ethan, I can explain." 6 weeks means it happened while you were asking for space to heal our marriage. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. His voice was still quiet, still controlled, but there was something final in it. You asked for space to work on us, and you used that space to sleep with someone else. You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage. So you made yourself visible to someone else. Ruth stood up, her face triumphant. "I want her out of this house, now." "Ruth," my mother protested, "she's carrying a baby. She's carrying someone else's baby while she's married to my son." The shouting match that followed was ugly, brutal. Accusations flew back and forth while I sat in the center of it all, feeling the walls of my life collapsing around me. Finally, Ethan held up his hand for silence. Everyone needs to leave. Now. I need to think. As we gathered our things, he pulled me aside. Don't come home tonight, or tomorrow. I need time to figure out what comes next. Ethan, please. You wanted space, Lysandra. Now you have all the space you need. The next few weeks passed in a blur of whispered conversations and careful avoidance. I stayed with Greta, spending my days at work pretending everything was normal, while my personal life imploded in slow motion. David had gone silent after I told him about the pregnancy. One day he was texting about our connection, the next he'd blocked my number. Apparently an affair was one thing, but a pregnancy complicated things beyond what he was willing to handle. Meanwhile, Ethan had transformed into someone I didn't recognize. Gone was the emotional, sometimes volatile man I'd married. In his place was someone cool, methodical, frighteningly calm. He arranged custody through lawyers, allowing me to see Mia every other day, but never when he was present. When I tried to call him directly, he didn't answer. When I showed up at the apartment, he spoke to me like I was a stranger. We can discuss this through our attorneys, became his standard response to everything. Our attorneys? I'd laughed bitterly. I can't afford an attorney, Ethan. I make $30,000 a year. That's not my problem anymore. The coldness in his voice was worse than anger would have been. At work, I tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but the stress was showing. I'd started having morning sickness, which made it hard to concentrate. My supervisor had noticed my decreased productivity. Everything okay at home, Lysandra? She asked during my monthly review. Just some personal stuff. It won't affect my work. But it already was affecting my work. I'd missed 2 important deadlines, mixed up client files, and spent more time in the bathroom than at my desk. My co-workers had noticed too. Jennifer from accounting, who'd complimented my glow a few weeks earlier, now looked at me with barely concealed pity. If you need someone to talk to, she offered one afternoon. I went through a difficult divorce a few years ago. We're not getting divorced, I said automatically. Oh, I just assumed. With the separate living arrangements and the lawyer meetings. Lawyer meetings? Jennifer looked uncomfortable. Tom Henderson mentioned seeing Ethan at the family law offices downtown. I thought you knew. I didn't know. Ethan hadn't told me he'd hired a lawyer. That evening I confronted Greta. Did you know Ethan hired a divorce attorney? My sister looked up from her laptop, her expression careful. Liz, what did you expect? You're pregnant with another man's baby. I expected him to fight for our marriage. I expected him to want to work things out. You cheated on him. You're carrying someone else's child. What exactly is there to work out? We could try counseling. You could have tried counseling before you slept with David. The name hung between us. I'd finally told Greta the truth about who the father was, and she'd been distant ever since. You think I'm a terrible person. I think you made terrible choices. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ethan's attorney. We need to schedule a meeting to discuss custody arrangements and asset division. Please call our office at your earliest convenience. I stared at the message, the reality of my situation finally sinking in. This wasn't a rough patch we'd work through. This wasn't a temporary separation. Ethan was done with our marriage. That night, I called my mother. Honey, I've been so worried about you, she said. How are you feeling? Scared. Alone. I think Ethan's really going to divorce me. Maybe that's for the best. You two clearly weren't happy. Mom, I'm pregnant and unemployed. You're not unemployed. I will be soon. I can barely function at work, and once the baby comes, you'll figure it out. You always do. And maybe this is a chance for a fresh start. A fresh start? I'm about to be a single mother of 2 with no money and no support system. You have me, you have Greta. But I could hear the doubt in her voice. Greta had already told me I couldn't stay with her indefinitely, especially once the baby came, and my mother lived in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. The next morning, I woke up to find Greta sitting at the kitchen table with a serious expression. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About your living situation, about the future." I poured myself coffee with shaking hands. "What about it?" "Lys, I love you, but this can't be permanent. I have my own life, my own problems. And frankly, watching you destroy your family has been difficult. I'm not destroying anything. I made a mistake. You made a series of choices, and now you need to deal with the consequences. So you're kicking me out too. I'm giving you a reality check. You need to figure out what you want your life to look like, because this limbo isn't working for anyone." That afternoon, I swallowed my pride and called Ethan. "We need to talk," I said when he finally answered. "I told you, we can discuss everything through. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I'll come to the school. We can talk in your classroom." A long pause. "Fine, but I have a meeting at 4, so make it quick." Lincoln High School felt like foreign territory, even though I'd been there dozens of times for school events and teacher conferences. The hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and adolescent anxiety, and I felt conspicuous walking toward Ethan's classroom in my work clothes. He was grading papers when I knocked on the open door. He looked up, his expression neutral. "Close the door," he said. I did, then took the student desk closest to his. "Thank you for seeing me." "What do you want, Lysandra?" "I want to know if there's any chance we can work this out." He set down his red pen and looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. "Work what out?" "Our marriage, our family." "You're pregnant with another man's baby." I know how that sounds, how that looks. But people work through infidelity. People rebuild trust. Do they? When the infidelity results in a permanent reminder, when you'll be raising another man's child in our home. It doesn't have to be a reminder. It could be our child. We could raise it together. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want me to raise the baby you conceived while you were supposedly working on our marriage?" "Stranger things have happened." "Not to me. They haven't happened to me." I felt tears starting. "So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just done?" "I was done the moment you chose someone else over working on us." "I didn't choose him over you. It just happened." "Nothing just happens, Lys. You made a choice to meet him. You made a choice to have drinks with him. You made a choice to go to that hotel room. You made a choice every step of the way." "You're right, you're absolutely right. But I'm making a different choice now. I'm choosing our marriage." "It's too late." "It doesn't have to be." Ethan stood up and walked to the window overlooking the parking lot. "Do you know what the worst part is?" "What?" "It's not even the cheating. It's the lying, the gaslighting, the way you made me feel crazy for asking questions, for wanting to know where my wife was. I was scared. You were selfish. And you're still being selfish now, asking me to pretend this never happened so you don't have to face the consequences." A knock on the door interrupted us. Another teacher peered in. "Sorry, Ethan. I didn't know you were in a meeting." "It's fine, Carol. We're just finishing up." After she left, Ethan turned back to me. "I need you to leave now." "Ethan, I need you to leave, and I need you to stop calling me directly. My lawyer will be in touch about custody and support arrangements." "Support arrangements?" "For Mia, I'll obviously continue supporting my daughter." "What about me? What about you?" "I'm your wife." "Not for much longer." I left the school feeling hollowed out, empty. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and called David's number, even though I knew he'd blocked me. Sure enough, it went straight to voicemail. "David, it's Lysandra. I know you don't want to talk to me, but we need to discuss the baby. You can't just disappear. Call me back." He didn't call back. He never called back. That evening, Greta found me crying on her couch. "What happened?" I told her about the conversation with Ethan, about David's continued silence, about the growing realization that I was going to be completely on my own. "Maybe you should consider other options," she said carefully. "Other options?" "You're only 8 weeks along. There are still choices you could make. I stared at her. You think I should have an abortion? I think you should consider all your options. You're looking at single motherhood with no financial support, no partner, limited family help. I can't. I won't. Then you need to start making practical decisions. About work, about housing, about how you're going to support 2 children on your salary. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about the life I'd had just 2 months ago. A husband who loved me, a stable home, a daughter who felt secure. I'd thrown it all away for what? A few hours of feeling desired, a fantasy of a different life. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lysandra, this is Ethan's attorney. We've prepared initial divorce papers and would like to schedule a time for service. Please respond with your current address. Service. Like I was being sued, which I supposed I was. I typed back, "Can't we handle this more privately?" The response came quickly. "Mr. Vane has requested formal service. Please provide your address or we'll serve you at your place of employment." The thought of being served divorce papers at work, in front of my colleagues, made me sick. I gave them Greta's address. 3 days later, on a Thursday evening while Mia was visiting, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I called to Greta, who was helping Mia with homework at the kitchen table. I opened the door to find a middle-aged man in a suit holding a manila envelope. "Lysandra Vane?" "Yes." "You've been served." He handed me the envelope and walked away before I could respond. I stood in the doorway, holding the papers that would officially end my marriage, my hands trembling. "Mummy, who was that?" Mia called from the kitchen. "Just someone delivering papers for work," I managed. But Greta appeared in the hallway, took one look at my face and the envelope in my hands, and knew exactly what had happened. "Mia, sweetie, why don't you go watch TV in the living room for a few minutes?" After Mia left, Greta gently took the envelope from my hands and guided me to the kitchen table. "Do you want me to look at these first?" she asked. I shook my head and opened the envelope with shaking fingers. The legal language was dense, formal, but certain phrases jumped out at me. Irreconcilable differences, adultery, petition for dissolution of marriage, sole custody. Sole custody. I looked up at Greta. He's asking for sole custody of Mia. Greta read over my shoulder. "It says here that he's citing your unstable living situation and demonstrated poor judgment as grounds for primary custody. He can't do that. She's my daughter too. Liz, you're living in my spare bedroom with no permanent address. You're pregnant with another man's baby. You cheated on your husband. From a legal standpoint what? From a legal standpoint, he has a strong case." I flipped through the pages, seeing my life reduced to legal terminology and bullet points. There was a timeline of events that was frighteningly accurate. Dates of my overnight absences, financial records showing hotel charges, even witness statements from people who'd seen me with David. "How does he have all this information?" I whispered. "He's been building a case, Lise. While you were thinking this would all blow over, he was documenting everything." Attached to the divorce petition was a custody evaluation request and a financial disclosure form that laid out our assets and debts in stark detail. We didn't have much. The apartment was rented, our cars were financed, our savings account had less than $3,000. But even that little bit would be split, leaving me with almost nothing. "There's also this," Greta said, pointing to a section I'd missed. "He's requesting that you undergo counseling and parenting classes before any overnight custody is granted." "Parenting classes? I've been Mia's mother for 7 years. And in the last 2 months, you've made some questionable decisions that affected her stability." I wanted to argue, but the evidence was right there in black and white. The hotel receipts, the nights away from home, the family dinner where Mia had learned about affairs and pregnancy in the worst possible way. "What do I do now?" I asked. "You need a lawyer." "I can't afford a lawyer. You saw our financial disclosure. I have nothing." then you need to represent yourself or find legal aid. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day at the county courthouse, trying to understand my options. The legal aid office had a 6-month waiting list. The pro bono clinic could only help with paperwork, not representation. The cheapest attorney I could find wanted a $5,000 retainer. I don't have $5,000, I told him. Then I'd suggest you try to work something out with your husband outside of court, he replied, because if this goes to trial, you're going to lose. Lose how badly? Supervised visitation, maybe weekends once you establish stable housing, and that's if you're lucky. That evening, I swallowed what was left of my pride and called Ethan. I got the papers, I said when he answered. Okay. Sole custody, Ethan. Really? I'm doing what's best for Mia. I'm her mother. I love her. I know you love her, but love isn't enough anymore. What do you want from me? What would it take for you to reconsider the custody arrangement? A long pause. I want you to be honest. With yourself, with me, with Mia. I want you to stop making excuses and take responsibility for what you've done. I am taking responsibility. Are you? Because every conversation we've had, you've blamed me for your choices. My emotional distance, my controlling behavior, my failure to make you happy. When do you take ownership of your decisions? I was quiet for a long moment. You're right, I made terrible choices. I hurt you, I hurt Mia, I destroyed our family. Is that what you want to hear? I want to hear the truth. That is the truth. I was selfish and stupid, and I threw away the best thing in my life for a fantasy. I was so focused on what I thought I was missing that I couldn't see what I had. And now I'm pregnant and alone, and my daughter barely looks at me the same way. Now I'm facing the reality that I might lose custody of my own child because I couldn't appreciate my marriage when I had it. Another pause. Lysandra, I need you to understand something. This isn't about punishment. This isn't about revenge. This is about protecting Mia from any more instability. I know. Do you? Because I don't think you understand how much damage has already been done. She asks me every day why Mommy doesn't live with us anymore. She wants to know if the new baby means she won't be special anymore. She's 7 years old, and she's worried about things no 7-year-old should have to think about. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I never wanted to hurt her. But you did, and now I have to fix it. What if I agreed to the divorce but we worked out a different custody arrangement? I could get a bigger apartment, prove that I can provide stability. With what money? You make $30,000 a year and you're about to have another baby. The math doesn't work. So that's it. You get everything and I get nothing. You get consequences. There's a difference. The finality in his voice told me this conversation was over. But as I was about to hang up, he said something that stopped me. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it came to this. I really am. Ethan? Yeah? Do you ever think about what might have happened if I'd come home that first weekend instead of meeting David? Every day. But we can't change the past, Lys. We can only deal with what is. After he hung up, I sat in Greta's kitchen, staring at the divorce papers spread across the table. In 2 months, I'd gone from being a wife and mother with a stable life to being a soon-to-be single mother, facing supervised visitation with my own daughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd asked for space to heal, and now I had all the space I could ever want. Space from my husband, space from my daughter, space from the life I'd taken for granted. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "How are you holding up, honey?" I stared at the question for a long time before typing back, "I'm getting exactly what I deserve." 3 months later, I signed the divorce papers in a sterile conference room at Ethan's attorney's office. The custody arrangement was better than I'd feared, but worse than I'd hoped, alternating weekends and 1 evening per week, contingent on me maintaining stable housing and completing parenting classes. Ethan was there, signing his own set of papers with the same methodical precision he brought to grading tests. He looked good, healthier than he had in months, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "That concludes our business," his attorney announced. "The divorce will be final in 30 days. As we gathered our things, Ethan turned to me. "I hope you find what you're looking for." "I already found it," I said. "I just found it too late." He nodded once and left without looking back. Walking out of that office, I realized that some mistakes can't be unmade, some trust can't be rebuilt, and some consequences can't be avoided. I'd asked for space to heal, but what I'd really needed was the wisdom to appreciate what I already had. The baby was due in 6 months. I'd found a small apartment across town and a second job to help with expenses. David had never returned my calls, never acknowledged paternity, never offered support. I was truly on my own. But maybe that was what I'd wanted all along, to be free of expectations, of obligations, of the daily work of maintaining a marriage and family. Maybe this was my authentic life, the one I'd been so desperate to find. It just wasn't the life I'd imagined when I walked out of my apartment that first weekend, phone in hand, texting another man while my husband and daughter waited for me to come home. Some space can't be healed, some bridges can't be rebuilt, and sometimes getting exactly what you ask for is the cruelest punishment of all.